Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant, insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. Today's episode is a crossover Grizzlies Lakers preview with the Lakers Lounge podcast hosted by Anthony Irwin. I went on his show. We spent a lot of time just talking about Lakers and Grizzlies. It's good to hear the perspective of someone who covers the other team. He has concerns about the Lakers, but also feels, I think, relatively confident. We both make our predictions for the series. I'll go ahead and say I'm open to changing my prediction that I made, but I think you'll find it very entertaining as we continue getting excited for the big matchup, which of course starts on Sunday. If you're in the Nashville area, of course, and not going to the game in Memphis, please come to Noble's Beer Hall. We have these awesome playoff posters to give away for our Grizzlies Nashville watch party for game one. We have playoff koozies and playoff sunglasses to give away. Also some bigger prizes. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're anywhere near Nashville, Tennessee on Sunday, April 16th, come to Noble's Beer Hall for a Grizzlies Nashville watch party. Also, I guess I should say, I didn't mention it last episode. Congratulations to Taylor Jenkins for winning Western Conference Coach of the Month for the combined months of March and April. This is the third Coach of the Month award that Taylor Jenkins has won. So good job, Coach. All right, now here is the conversation that I had with Anthony Irwin as we preview Grizzlies and Lakers. Also talk a little bit about the play-in and some other stuff. I hope you enjoy it.
I'm Anthony Irwin, today joined by somebody who covers the team the Lakers are getting ready to play in this first round of the playoffs. Somebody who I have been talking basketball with for years. Somebody who to this day has probably my favorite quote ever while talking about basketball, drunk in Vegas. I told him, well, I'll get to that story here in a second.
You were drunk, not me, but sorry, keep going.
That's true. That's true. Well, I don't know. At that stage, everybody was pretty toasty. But
listen, I was driving a car. I was walking around laughing at drunk Lakers people. No, stone cold sober Keith.
But that was a well, shoot. I'll just go ahead and dive into it. That was Keith Parrish, by the way. He of Fast Break Breakfast. He of Grits and Grinds. He of again this story. So we're sitting there. We're talking about basketball in the backyard of the SB Nation house there. And we are late enough into the night that we are talking about the not just like the X's and O's, but like basketball philosophy, right? We are deep in it, late in this late night, early morning, maybe even in Vegas. And I say, look, if Steve Nash played the right way, why did Kobe win all the championships? And you said something along the lines of like, because that's how the world works. Because all the evil people win. And I remember like distinctly, I was sitting down and all of a sudden you were standing up and I was like, you know, that tracks. Well, I think that works.
I feel like since we're on a Lakers show and that brief anecdote paints me in a very negative light, I feel like the further context, I don't remember if it was Steve Nash or anything. You were like, if these things, whatever, if this resulted in a championship, how can your case be correct? I said, because evil wins, Anthony. I've been a Laker hater my whole life, but bad things happen. There's no longer like, oh, it's going to work out. Like, this is not a movie. There is no moral karmic punishment for doing wrong. A lot of times the bad guys win.
It was like before, because this is way before the good place existed. But this was you basically telling me, because we're in the bad place, Anthony.
Yeah, we're in the bad place, dude. You're like, you can commit lots of crimes and still lead the country. It doesn't matter. We're in the bad place, dude. Like everyone in charge. Oh, everyone's just stealing from all the poor people. Yeah, we're in the bad place. Like that's what you do.
That's how we live.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that as context as to how this conversation is going to go and how maybe the series is going to go, Keith and I are going to preview the Lakers playing Memphis in this series. It's a fascinating one. It is a super interesting playoffs in general, where I think 2 or 3 of the lower seeds in their series are actually favored in the Western Conference, and the Lakers I think are a toss-up. So yeah, it's a really interesting year in the sport, and I think with this series in particular, I we'll start micro and move out to macro over the course of the show, but I want to start here. Obviously, Memphis super thin up front. Without Steven Adams, without Brandon Clark, that's your top kind of concern, I would imagine. But having watched LeBron James get absolutely sloppy in the play-in game against Minnesota, a game that you and I watched together on your playback, did that ease your concern? Because it looked like he was trying to go and reach back and fire that 102 mile an hour fastball. But all that kept happening was like the ball was slipping out of his hands. It was 50-cent clip after 50-cent clip throwing the first pitch.
So, I mean, I obviously have a lot of thoughts about this series, whether or not that like one play-in game kind of swayed my opinion. I mean, maybe a little bit. Like, I feel like this matchup is incredibly close. I don't think of it as like, hey, this is a 2 versus a 7 or a 50 something win team against like a 42 or 3 win team, whatever you guys won. Like for me, it's closer to like, it's more like a 4 or 5 matchup. Like the Grizzlies, if we're talking like 82 game win total samples, like the Grizzlies without Steven Adams and Brandon Clark, more, in my mind, more like a 46, 47 win team. The Lakers with LeBron and AD healthy, and since post trade deadline, they're also more like a 46 type win team. So like, I think these teams actually are very close. One of the things that gives me more comfort as a Grizzlies fan is every time I've watched the Lakers this year, I don't feel like they look that impressive. I'm like, this is the team we're worried about. There are some numbers that I put on my show Grits and Grinds that have me very concerned, that make the Lakers look very, very strong and like a very scary matchup for the Grizzlies. But every time I watch the Lakers, I'm like, this is the team I'm supposed to be worried about.
I kind of feel like that's just the Western Conference this year. Right?
Oh, sure.
Like, I feel like every single team you watch and at different stages of the season, you say, oh my God, like Denver, for example, right? I talked to Adam yesterday.
Yeah.
And there were stretches, especially early in the season when Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was a freaking blowtorch out there. You look at them, you watch them play, and you're like, oh my God. Like, what does anybody do against that starting 5? And then you watch them later in the season, and sure, a big part of it is because they don't care. And when Jokic doesn't care, he has the worst poker face in the league. But, you watch them play and you're like, I mean, okay. Right. All right. That's a 1 seed, I guess. And I remember it was during a playback with my buddy Aaron, who does the show with me on Fridays. I was doing his show and we were actually watching a Phoenix game. And we were making the case for like teams that we were most nervous to play in the playoffs. And Phoenix was at the top of our list. This was in the middle of them barely beating, if not, I think they went to overtime against or KD had to play like 40 minutes to barely beat a Nuggets team that wasn't playing with any of its starters. So yeah, like at all of these moments, the concepts of a lot of these teams is pretty frightening. But then you watch it in practice and you're like, all right. Well, cool.
That's the difficulty of the NBA now, where it's just everyone's learned, and you can credit Adam Silver for creating the play-in tournament and keeping a lot of teams alive and having this great drama. But maybe it did so devalue the regular season where like it's hard to take any conclusions from the regular season. Like we all watched the Wolves this year.
Yeah.
And the
especially
Wolves
on the road.
are massive favorites, over the Kings. And it's like, we don't care what happened in the regular season. It used to be, I think it was John Schumann on NBA.com was always like, the first 20 games of a season, that tells you everything you need to know. Like you look at the standings after the first 20 games. This used to be true. I think the last 3 or 4 seasons, it's been less true. And so it's like, part of me as a Grizzlies fan, again, I take comfort where like, well, when everyone was basically healthy and trying, we were really, really good. Just like we were really, really good last year. When I look at like the post All-Star break records, it's like the Grizzlies have the 4th best record and the Lakers have the 2nd best record since the All-Star break. I'm like, and after the All-Star break, nothing matters. Some teams are trying to win, and the Lakers look pretty good doing it. And like other teams, the Grizzlies, they've had, their main guys for like, I think it was like 12 or 13 games since the All-Star break. And like most of the games, their opponent was nobody. It was the Bucks playing no one, or it was the Rockets. It's like, I don't know how to take any information out of what all these teams have done. And so I think we default as basketball fans to just be like, all right, what is my impression of this individual player in a vacuum? And that's where we get things with the Lakers. We're like, well, they have LeBron James and they have Anthony Davis, and those guys are some of the greatest players of all time. And so that's why you see this like, all right, Lakers probably they could be favorites, or if at the very least it's a toss-up.
We are really basically left to our own vices, right? In the analysis here, like we just get to spin our own narrative because the regular season just isn't representative of really anything. And, we see this in baseball where like the Dodgers have won 37 straight division titles, and, they have won 66% of their games in the last 5 or 6 seasons or something like that. One of those stats is actually true. And yet they have one World Series to show for it. And it's because the postseason is a completely different sport than the regular season. In the regular season, you need all, every single position player at your disposal, and you need, innings eaters and stuff like that over the course of a 162 game season. There's no such thing as an innings eater in the postseason. Like everybody that you need to bring out of your rotation, out of your bullpen, has to throw like 100 plus. And all of your position players, like, you'll get the occasional pinch hit and maybe a pinch runner here and there, but that's pretty much fallen by the wayside. It's 2 completely different sports. And I legitimately don't know how you analyze the postseason versus the regular season in that sport. In hockey and in football, it's like a more intense version of the sport, and that kind of makes sense. I think that's where it kind of tracks, but I'm concerned that basketball is starting to fall into the category with baseball where the regular season ends and you just kind of look back and you're like, all right, well, I guess that happened. Let's try to figure out how this is going to go now. And, the play-in game, it's funny. You don't want to overreact to a play-in game that the Lakers had against Minnesota, but that is the closest thing to a playoff that you're going to see as you get ready for the playoffs. And the Lakers didn't look good.
No,
like a lot of Lakers fans. I keep hearing Harrison the other night was saying how the Lakers overcame pretty bad LeBron stretch down the end of that game, and D'Angelo Russell played really poorly, and Austin Reeves wasn't ready for the moment, and yet the Lakers still somehow were able to kind of edge that thing out. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but they were playing against a team that would also be saying the same things had they won that game.
Right.
So I don't know really what to feel heading into this series as far as the caliber of the Lakers.
So,
and here we go.
Let's talk about that inning eaters idea, or like the depth of each team and how it's going to relate to this series. This is one category that I think favors the Grizzlies. What I think favors the Grizzlies in this series is the Grizzlies know who they are and they know who their players are. I think for the Lakers, my reading of the Lakers is we have LeBron, we have AD, we have Austin Reeves. And then it's like, who else is going to play 38 minutes? Who's going to play 40 minutes? I'd say no one. I'd say they're going to be like, does Malik Beasley have it? No.
D'Angelo Russell, he's not playing in the second half.
Yeah.
I think the Lakers have more question marks actually on their
Absolutely.
roster. When you look at the Grizzlies roster, and one thing that I take comfort in, I keep saying comfort. I'm very stressed, Anthony. When I look at the Grizzlies,
you want to go grab
season,
a blankie? If
No,
you were Frank Vogel, you'd have Avery Bradley sitting next to you to do this podcast.
the Grizzlies use inning eaters constantly.
Mm-hmm.
They don't play their guys heavy minutes. A lot of this has come up in the Jaren Jackson Jr. Defensive Player of the Year debate. Remember, it's like, look how low his minutes are. They don't play him on purpose. He's only fouled out, I think it's 3 games this year. He doesn't foul out. He does have foul issues. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying he averages 29 minutes per game because they choose to play him 29 minutes per game. They don't play their guys. And so when we get to the playoffs for the Grizzlies, they won 51 games this year, 56 games the year before, playing their guys all 31 minutes and less. And when it gets to the postseason, well, guess what? Desmond Bane's going to play 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Ja Morant is going to play 40 minutes or more. Dylan Brooks is going to play 40 minutes. Jaren, fingers crossed, is going to play more than 30. He's going to play more than 29. We're going to shorten our rotation. The Grizzlies question marks are, who's our 9th guy? Are we going to play Roddy or Conchar? But we know who our top 7 guys are, who are going to play all the minutes, even top 8. I think that favors the Grizzlies, where I think Darvin Ham has a lot of question marks to be like, who do I go with tonight? Who do I go with tonight to complement AD and LeBron? I'm going to play AD and LeBron as much as I possibly can. Probably Schroeder, probably Austin Reeves, but I feel like it's going to be like, hey, has Jared Vanderbilt's having a great hustle game. He's killing the Grizzlies, on the glass. Or it's like the Grizzlies aren't guarding Jared Vanderbilt, and Jaren Jackson Jr. has 6 blocks because he's not guarding anyone. He's just playing free safety. And we have to put more of an offensive threat to make Jaren guard somebody. And so I do think there's fewer question marks for the Grizzlies, and I think that could be an advantage for them.
Absolutely. Completely on the same page with you. We were doing the game in that playing game together, and it was 2 minutes into the second quarter, and I looked down and I'm like, 10 guys have already played. Yeah. He's just throwing shit at the wall. Yeah. We'll see how this thing goes. And, I think that's fine when you're in February and you're still trying to figure out your roster, but we're in April, and that makes it a lot more difficult. That identity, I think, one of the points that you kind of talked around there was the notion of identity, right? Yep. The Grizzlies know exactly who they are. They have all bought into. Now we can make the case one way or the other as far as have they gone too far into their identity, but they know 1,000,000% who they are. They are in your face. They are going to talk their shit, and they are going to try to kick your butt in every sense of the word, and let you know about it every time they do. And the Lakers, I think, they're still trying to figure out. Ham wants to pull them in the direction of smaller and more skilled. Can't do that against Memphis though, because you weren't as skilled as Ja Morant and Desmond Bane. So I think naturally you're going to get pulled in the other direction of kind of bigger, longer, more athletic, more physical. And that's where you see Rui get more minutes, and that's where you see Vanderbilt out there on Ja Morant and stuff like that. But it's just a matter of how quickly Ham makes that adjustment. It took him until the fourth quarter to really kind of move off of D'Angelo Russell completely and go with Dennis Schroeder and play Rui Hachimura. I think Rui played 27 minutes in that one. He probably should have played 35. That is going to be a huge factor here. How quickly Ham moves off of the identity that he wants for the identity or the playing style that you actually have to utilize here against Memphis. How do you feel? I would imagine a lot of teams over the course of the season would try to, just kind of use length on Ja and more kind of try to corral him than to try to actually, stop him from doing anything. He's the most athletic guard in the league. You aren't going to stop him from turning the corner and stuff. So how effective has length been on Ja this year?
Well, I would say a better example is not just this year. It's looking at last year's playoff series against the Timberwolves, where the Timberwolves had length and athleticism they could put on Ja, and they had Jaden McDaniels guarding him, and they had Anthony Edwards guarding him, and it was rough. And Ja was negated offensively for a while. He picked up a lot of assists. Desmond Bane had a huge series scoring. A lot of it because was the attention that they were paying to Ja. So as far as this regular season, honestly, I feel like I can't even remember examples of teams game planning in that way of being like,
you don't really game plan in the regular season.
You don't game plan. Yeah. I do think the defensive thing that teams do, and I think the Lakers are probably going to do, that has seemed effective against the Grizzlies, is just pack it in and pray that Bane and Kennard aren't making their threes, which is a tough thing to pray for. I guess you pray that Jaren and Dylan are missing their threes.
I think that's the bigger one.
Bane and Kennard are more of the constant. But I think when the Lakers go under all the screens, which they probably should do, although I will say one of my favorite cherry pick stats, Ja Morant averages more threes per game and shoots a better 3-point percentage in his playoff career than Larry Bird did. Just different eras. I'm only messing around.
Take that, Mad Dog.
but Ja in his playoff career, with 14 games, not counting the play-in, he's made 2 threes per game, and so he shoots them. And so, but I still think you got to pick your poison. So I assume they're going to go under everything and just make the Grizzlies not get in the paint, because everyone knows the Grizzlies are a great paint scoring team. Less so since Steven Adams has been out and they acquired Luke Kennard at the trade deadline. But still, I think most teams shoot better when the ball goes in and then kicks back out, or off an offensive rebound and it kicks back out. The Grizzlies are not particularly effective at creating on the perimeter outside of Ja. So I think the Lakers, as opposed to putting the length on him and letting him drive, because I think the problem is, I don't know the numbers. I don't think the Lakers is a great rim protection team. And so if you put Jared Vanderbilt out on Ja, well, then when he beats him, AD is going to be back there. But I feel like then Ja can attack your defense in multiple ways, because like Jared Vanderbilt, great hustle player, bless his heart. I don't think he's going to stop Ja from penetrating Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards had some success at.
Yeah, I think, Vanderbilt on Ja is as much, because if you were just to try to create a player in a lab who would try to defend Ja, it would kind of look like Jared Vanderbilt, right? There's some tweaks here and there. But it's also born of necessity, because you sure as hell aren't putting D'Angelo Russell on Ja. And even and even like Austin Reeves, who I think Lakers fans are a little higher on defensively than he actually is. Good on that end of the court. I think he's fine. But I think Lakers fans have kind of convinced themselves that he's like better than good, which I think that has a lot to do with Caruso, because Caruso is actually that, and they're like squinting and like, he's white, he's got to be like solid, right? So like Reeves on Ja terrifies me. Hell, Reeves even on Bane really kind of makes me nervous, because Bane is such a good shooter and Reeves isn't tall enough to like make him feel or have his presence felt when he's shooting. So that makes me kind of nervous there. But what I would say about the rim protection, I think AD is about as good a rim protector as you can find. Sure. The problem is, once the ball is on the rim, the weak side, the pinch down guys who come down on the backside of the defense and have to block out the person that AD was just guarding, that usually is Austin Reeves, and that usually is D'Angelo Russell. And that's where you run into some problems where maybe the first one misses, but they're usually in pretty good position to either tap the ball back out to a shooter, or just get the ball back up on the rim with AD standing on the other side of it, and that's usually a pretty good look. But
I would say good news there, Anthony. The Grizzlies are a terrible rebounding team, so that's good.
Well,
I mean, again, they went from the best offensive rebounding team in the league to just like bottom third when Steven Adams went out. Like, and of course Brandon Clark. Like, both of those guys, they went from this being their identifiable best thing trait, basically, to now being we have to win in different ways.
Yeah. Did Clark tear his Achilles, or is it just an Achilles strain? He did?
No, it's torn Achilles. Yeah, he's out for
that's
forever.
Yeah. He's a huge absence here. I think the biggest absence for Memphis in this series, right? Like he would theoretically, he has a body type that can stay in front of LeBron. He is physical enough to go out there and bang around with AD and Rui and Vanderbilt. You talk about the offensive rebounding and stuff. Do I have that right? Would you say he's the biggest bummer
most
here?
People, so it's an interesting question. The majority opinion now is that Steven Adams is more important. Steven Adams has a great regular season. They are just dominant this year with Steven Adams on the court and last year. Now, I think it's fair to posit like what actually is the biggest loss when you look at the playoffs last year, because Brandon Clark was their preferred closer. Brandon Clark was honestly like, he was the X factor that might have won the Minnesota series. Top of my head, I think he averaged 16 points and 9 rebounds per game against Minnesota last year. Yeah. And he also was one of the reasons they traded for Rudy Gobert, because they gave up so many offensive rebounds. Yeah. So good job, Brandon Clark.
Thanks, Brandon.
But Brandon Clark was their preferred closer alongside Jaren in the playoffs last year. And even they chose not to play Steven Adams this year. I've made plenty of jokes about it on Fast Break Breakfast and on Grits and Grinds, where like everyone was kind of bemoaning the loss of Steven Adams. And obviously it's a huge issue, but the Grizzlies went through a little losing streak and they're like, well, we're missing it became like, this is the linchpin to our team. And it's like, well, should he be the linchpin to our team? Yeah. Because he was getting DNP's coach's decision in the playoffs last year. And again, I love Steven Adams and he's really, really good. And like, if you made me pick one, which would be a cruel thing to ask me, like if I could have one of them back, I don't know. I think I would choose Steven Adams just for this specific matchup. Like, the issue with Steven Adams would be, all right, he can't defend on the perimeter as well. And, he can get beat by like pick and roll, going under, playing drop defense. The other team hurts you on 3-point shooting. The Lakers aren't a good 3-point shooting team. So I'm like, in this matchup, I think I wish we had Steven Adams. And then I would not feel anxious. I would feel very, very confident. Steven
Adams also allows, because there are going to be games here where Jaren Jackson Jr. picks up like 2 fouls in the first quarter, or he picks up his third midway through the second or something like that. And what you don't want to do is take him out of the series, right? Like we saw that against Minnesota where Finch, because Cat was in his foul trouble, had Cat sit for long stretches of time, and it changed the game, right? And no, Minnesota fans, like Keith, you and I were watching that side by side, and not side by side, but like on the internet,
virtually.
And we were. Well, I think our we were virtually. Our boxes were close. No, I think John was actually in between us in the bubbles, but Minnesota fans were saying rigged, and NBA fans at large were saying rigged, and I get it. Like it's the Lakers, and there is going to be a lot of confirmation bias there, but also. Cat threw a punch at Jared Vanderbilt's throat while he had the ball one time, and he yanked down AD on another offensive rebound. Like that's just what he does, and I think Jaren Jackson Jr.'s fouls are more of they aren't of that like as dumb variety. He picks up a lot of them, and he does kind of he does try to get away. And look, this is how reputations are gained, right? Like Draymond Green is now able to move and grab and shove when he sets screens because he was called for a bunch of screens, and they're like, well, shoot, we can't foul him out of every game, so we're just going to let him get away with stuff. And so I kind of get why younger players try to push the envelope and push the envelope and push the envelope and eventually develop that reputation that allows them to do illegal stuff later in their careers. So I get well, to a lesser extent, Cat, but in Jaren Jackson Jr.'s case where, he is an elite rim protector and he is, absolutely elite, just doing almost anything defensively. And yet it does lead to some, annoying fouls here and there. And Adams would allow Jackson, I think, to play through some foul trouble. And they would just say, all right, if he picks up another one, I guess we're just going with Steven Adams here. Not having that safety blanket would make me nervous if I was a Grizzlies fan.
Well, I mean, that argument works for both guys that we're missing. Like with no Steven Adams and no Brandon Clark, now it's just a huge, massive issue. And beyond that, even if it's not foul trouble, like the Grizzlies are going to have a hard time winning the non-Jaren minutes. It's been that way all season. The Jaren minutes are all spectacular. His per minute production, everyone knows, is spectacular. The net rating when he's on the court, it's just otherworldly. So the more they can play Jaren, the better chances the Grizzlies are going to have at winning this series. Without Jaren, everything's a question mark. Like Tillman's a fine, okay player. He's a good one-on-one defender, but like he's not going to be, I don't know.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be in the rotation of every team. He wasn't
he's an
in
innings
the Grizzlies
eater. Like he's
rotation. I would say he's a step over an innings eater because he has a specific, let's do Liam Neeson, a specific set of skills. And it is, he's a fantastic.
Oh God, he's going to come kill me.
He's a better perimeter defender than Steven Adams is. He can switch out onto guys. We're going to see him taking a few possessions on LeBron, I would guess. Times that Dillon Brooks is off the court and maybe if AD's off the court, like they're going to have Tillman, maybe guarding LeBron. They had Tillman guarding Kawhi. At the end of the year, like that was how they started the matchup, like in that game. So like he's a pretty good defender, but beyond that, you got Santi Aldama, unproven in the playoffs, tall guy, but he's offensive mainly. He's not gonna be able to guard anybody, and he's not a particularly good rebounder. And then you have to go small ball, and the Grizzlies small ball. You were saying like maybe Darvin Ham wants to do that. I don't think that's going to be a problem for the Lakers. Like. Maybe it is advantage Grizzlies in the fact that you're not attacking their weakness. Like if the Grizzlies can get away with playing Roddy as the power forward or Dillon Brooks as the power forward, like the lineup, I think a lot of Grizzlies fans are super excited about is one they use to start their second to last game of the year is where Dillon Brooks is the power forward and they play Kennard and Bane. So it's Ja, Kennard, and Bane, and then Dillon and Jaren. So like if the Lakers put out a small ball lineup where the Grizzlies aren't getting punished on the glass for that might actually be advantage Grizzlies now that I sounded out. But that's going to be something the Grizzlies have to do, even if the Lakers are playing a little bit bigger. If you have LeBron and AD and Jared Vanderbilt on the court, if Jaren gets in foul trouble, you got to do something like that. And so that's going to be, that is an area of concern, that depth in the front court.
You mentioned earlier about Jackson, him playing, was it 29 or I think 29 minutes a game? How comfortable would you be with him, scaling that up to 35, 40 minutes a game?
Well, if it's not 35, we got problems. I mean, if Jared's not playing 35 minutes a game in the postseason, I think the Grizzlies are going to have a hard time winning this series. Like, can he physically handle that much? I have no idea. Like, he's been injured a couple times in his career. He missed the beginning of this year because of an off-season surgery. And so that's why they keep the minutes low. They want to keep him fresh, keep him healthy. They talked a lot about ramping him up for the playoffs, but like, I never saw the minutes climb that high. I'm actually checking. He did play 40 minutes against the Pelicans in one of the last games. It was a overtime game. So I guess you can throw that out a little bit. Like, he doesn't, normally play that much, but I do hope that he can, like, if he can handle 38, 40 minutes a game, that would be incredible. Again, like if you showed me the minutes breakdown after the series was over, if you're just like, hey, here's what the minutes per game turned out to be.
Yeah.
And if Jaren's at 40, I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, we won.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's a good way to look at it. That, you always have those stats at the end of it that you look at and say, okay, so long as this is the case, then cool. For me, it's AD free throws. If he's averaging, 10, 12 free throws a game and up, feel pretty good about how the Lakers played in that one. Or dunks. Also, AD dunks also tell a really good story for how he's playing. But obviously, you're not exactly shaking in your boots in comparison to LeBron and AD about the Lakers on the perimeter. But is there a player that beyond AD and LeBron that you're concerned can get the wrong guy into foul trouble or something like that? Is there any, like, there's a heavy to
the Austin Reeves foul drawing. I mean, that was the perfect setup for the Austin Reeves foul drawing. I mean, beyond Jaren's foul trouble, Dillon's foul trouble is an issue.
Yeah.
Like Dillon loves fouling. and he's a very aggressive and a very physical player. He also commits dumb fouls too, like where he's like, why in the world did you do that? And so, keeping Dillon out of foul trouble is going to be an issue. Because again, this Grizzlies team is not super deep. They voluntarily got rid of some of their depth from last year and invested in some rookies. And now it's like, all right, we have Tyus Jones, we have Kennard, we have Santi Aldama, and then I guess John Conchar. These are not the players I'm super confident in. And there's not a lot of size. So like if Dillon and Jaren get in foul trouble, all of a sudden it becomes like the Grizzlies are forced to play small ball. Also, I mean, I know you didn't say it specifically. I am super concerned and terrified of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Like they're
I mean that kind of goes without saying.
Those guys are incredible, and that's going to be that's going to be a handful. And that's why the Grizzlies are mild, barely favorites in this series.
Yeah, we joked on the broadcast watching that game the other night that this game was going to have like a week in between games. Lo and behold,
turns out
that's kind of how that played out. But yeah, like that winds up benefiting the Lakers, but also there's a ton of travel in this one. And I think this is a bigger factor than people are kind of making it out to be. Memphis is young, and they handle their minutes as if they're an older team, and they have had their bumps and bruises along the way. But you have a core of Triple J and Dillon and Bane and Ja, who I think the average age is what would you say, like 26?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Say that again. They're all very young. They're
like their average age is like maybe 24, 25, whatever it is.
I mean, Bane's 24. What Jaren and Ja are 23. Dillon turned 27. So yeah.
Yeah, and so like if your core is that young, the travel isn't going to impact you that much. But it's still a 4-hour flight that the Lakers are going to be taking. At least 3-4 times over the course of the series.
You're predicting a long series?
Oh yeah, I don't think this is going to be a short one. No matter how.
What do you think? I was thinking a long series favors the Grizzlies because of those. Like you said, the first 3 games are super spaced out. The Lakers are going to play 4 games in 2 weeks, counting the play-in, basically. And I thought it was weird that there were. I mean, I didn't think it was weird. I was expecting it, like you said. But I think it's weird that there's 2 games off between a non-travel game. Like we're in LA. Let's play Sunday. Let's play Tuesday, and then we'll travel. Then we'll take 2 days off because we had to travel. So, but then when those games, what is it? 4, 5, 6, 7. It's every other day, and we're talking cross country flights. We're like, you got to travel after game 4 and after game 5 and after game, and so like that is I don't know, that is particularly brutal. The difficulties of the Western Conference where the teams are so spread out. So part of me thinks, if the Lakers, you want to win these early games when you're rested. Yeah. And obviously that's going to help you shorten the series. The Grizzlies winning, if you're thinking the Lakers are going to win, if you don't take care of business as the Lakers, you lose game 1 or game 2, well, then you're talking about, this is now a 6-game series, best case. And so I do think all that extra travel, maybe it does favor the Grizzlies, but also if you want to get super scientific, the west to east jet lag is actually worse on your body, apparently, than east to west jet lag. So coming back to Memphis, although hopefully it would hurt both teams. I read a paper once. I'm not a scientist.
I'm so old at this point that all jet lag throws you for a loop.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just that's a really good point though, that a shorter series is really going to benefit the Lakers here because you go longer into this thing, and those younger bodies, they do recover and recuperate. And also, as you get later into the series, the games are going to get more intense, and so you're trying to recover quickly or more quickly from tougher games. Yeah, I don't really know how that's going to play out. Let's really quickly here give a couple predictions here on how we think this is going to go. And then I do want to spend a little bit of time on the plan. You like kind of quirky ideas, and I like to give them to you. So, how do you think this plays out? Like Memphis in 3, according to you, or how are you feeling?
Here's the thing. I believe the Grizzlies are going to win point differential. I think when the series is over, it's going to be like, oh, add up all the scores of the games, the Grizzlies came out ahead. Whether or not the Grizzlies win the series, I don't know. I think it could very easily be like 1 point Lakers win, 32 point Grizzlies win, 2 point Lakers. I don't think the Grizzlies are going to get blown out by the Lakers. I mean, famous last words. I don't think the Grizzlies are going to be at the hands of just drubbings. It's a very weird situation for the Grizzlies to have like a 3-point shooting advantage over their opponent. And so like, despite the Lakers, I think obvious advantage at rebounding, at maybe you could say championship experience with LeBron and AD. Beyond that, I do think it's gonna be a close series. I think the Grizzlies are going to be ahead by 15 in every single game, and I think I'm going to pick Grizzlies in 7.
I could see it, man. I have no idea. Vegas feels the same way. Vegas thinks this is basically a coin flip too. I could see just about any outcome to this one. Memphis hasn't been that great in the clutch this year, right? Like that was kind of an issue for them.
I mean, it depends on how you cherry pick the stats. I mean, so like the general clutch stats, they're fine. Like I believe they have a 58% winning percentage in the clutch, and the Lakers have a worse one. Their net rating in the clutch is pretty bad. They had a stretch there where, and the Lakers game was won, the famous Shannon Sharp game where the Lakers annihilated the Grizzlies in the final 3 minutes, and the Lakers overcame a big deficit. This year specifically, the Grizzlies' best players have not shot the basketball very well in the clutch. Last year, they did. I don't put a ton of stock specifically in clutch stats.
Yeah, clutch stats are kind of inherently cherry picked, right? Like, how do you define? Yeah, people say like 5 minutes and in with a certain score is basically how they define it, and it's like, okay, so if it's 1 point outside of that, we aren't counting the stats before then.
If you hit
505 to 501, like
if you hit a 3-pointer to cut a 6-point lead to 3 with 30 seconds left, that's not a clutch stat. So I mean, it's all pretty arbitrary.
Yeah. All right. I don't say this to be disrespectful.
Yeah,
but I think it's probably going to be like Lakers in 5 or 6.
Ooh. You can win a lot of money if that happens, because the Lakers are underdogs in game 1, so you go ahead and hit that. I mean, and then what the series price is pretty close. Honestly, I think I nailed this beforehand. I'm looking at a couple places where like, I think the Grizzlies personally, I think they have like a 58% chance of winning, but
sounds good.
The implied odds, Grizzlies minus 130 don't really say that. So there's definitely value. I'm not a gambler, but I feel like there's value on the Grizzlies here. I certainly think the Lakers could win. I think there's a lot of question marks for the Grizzlies. There's a lot of things that favor the Lakers in this matchup. But it does, plus 108, you're not quite getting your money's worth. But of course, if you think they're going to win in 5, Anthony, by all means, go win yourself some cash.
Well, there's always going to be value on the team playing against the Lakers. The Lakers are so public that the odds are going to be kind of juiced there. But I kind of think this Lakers season has been so weird. It's been so random that the outcome to this series, I think, is going to continue on that track, where the one thing that most people are not seeing is a short series here. And so, like, I could just as easily see Memphis winning in 5. Like, I could see, like, Memphis has been a better team for multiple years now. So, it's really hard to gauge this thing. All right, really quickly then, moving kind of more macro here. I've enjoyed the play-in. I think just about everybody has enjoyed the play-in. It's had some inherent kind of impact on the regular season that I don't think the league is particularly thrilled about. Really enjoyed them saying that players are going to have to play at least 65 games. I'm sure they pulled that number out of thin air, as if that hasn't for a long time now been the number of games the league should have their regular season at. But the play-in, like, I do think there are so many more eyes on these games than in the regular season. And I think eventually the league is going to look to expand the play-in tournament in some way, shape, or form. So I'm going to try to quickly summarize my elevator pitch here for how I think they would do that. I think they would keep the 7-8 game a 1-game move-on kind of thing and try to give the rest advantage to the team that is the 7 seed. And then the 8 seed team would wait for a 3-game series between the 9 and 10 teams. And then again, the 8 seed team would play a 3-game series against the winner of the 9 and 10 series. That's how I think this plays.
We're
out.
talking 2 weeks off for everybody, if that's the case.
You get everybody rest heading into the playoffs. The 9 and 10 seed, like they would normally be in the playoff anyway. So if like a 10 seed has to play 6 extra games to get into the playoffs, that's what you get for being the 10 seed.
6 extra games. Okay.
Right. I mean, that's what it would, worst case scenario, what it would be.
I'm saying. I'm scoffing at your proposal, Anthony.
I know. Most people are. Most people usually do. But but like in order to limit traveling, also the advantage that I'm giving here, it might be too much, but whatever, is that all of the games would be played at the higher seeds arena.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see that happening just because of the we're talking like 3 weeks off for the other playoff teams.
Yeah.
I don't think the NBA wants to lose that momentum for just some extra. Also, you've taken the juice out of the current play-in. The one and done format is great. That's the juice. And so like I personally think the play-in has been a lot of fun. I think specifically this year it's worked out that those teams all were very closely bunched as far as the records. I do think there's a lot of other years where it seems wholly unfair. I already think it's super unfair for the 8 seeds. Like the Timberwolves. There's been seasons before where the 8 seed was like 8 games up on the 9 seed. And so say that was the situation now where the Timberwolves have to fly cross country to play the Lakers.
Yeah.
They kind of pee their pants in the fourth quarter and lose. Now they have to fly back home, west to east, and have a do or die single elimination game against a 9 or a 10 seed, which again,
with a crowd that is also like that crowd for the second game that team has to play.
Yeah.
Always tense, never confident.
And so I don't think that doesn't seem super fair to me that like you're supposed to lose. Technically, you're supposed to lose the road game. If you're the 8 seed, you're supposed to lose to the 7 seed at home. And so they say it's a double elimination for you. It doesn't feel like it. You play a game where you're the underdog, and then your entire season is on the line in a single elimination game, especially with the way the league is now with 3-point shooting and the game-to-game variance. Like, man, the Pelicans can make 21 threes in a game, or they can make 3 threes in a game. That's why series are good. And so I don't think it's particularly fair. And I do worry it further devalues the regular season. I mean, I am a regular season fan. I love the regular season. I like watching basketball every night of the week. I like watching the individual performances. The playoffs are great, and everyone like rings culture is like so huge in the media where I'm like, yeah, the playoffs are awesome, but like I think the regular season is awesome too. And so I don't want like to further devalue like teams trying, and maybe the 65 games barrier or a requirement for winning an individual award will make the regular season mean a little bit more, where we won't have this, like we started off the show talking about post All-Star break. How do you analyze anything that happened?
Yeah.
Like 14 teams tried, but only 6 of them were desperate and actually had to win, And so it's like, how do I, with the Grizzlies resting players every other game, and like you have, I don't know, the regular season has gotten weird enough. So yeah, I do have, I guess, mixed feelings about the play-in and everything that's going on with that.
That's part of what I'm taking into account here, essentially, is that like the regular season has become so worthless to a lot of these, and like people always kind of look at the players as the problem here, and like they carry their burden of this too, but it is an organizational thing. The load management stuff is like it, that's that you do have teams holding out guys and saying, hey, like your hamstring, all right? It looks like you're limping. We're going to go ahead and sit you down for a little bit. Like that does happen. And like I want like the 8 seed and the 7 seed to have as much an advantage as they can possibly have here. Yeah. And forcing the 9 and 10 seed to play 2 extra potential, games before they see one of the 7 or 8 seed. And then the next time they see that 7 and 8 seed, it is going to be all on the road. Like I want teams to look at the 9 and 10 spot and say, no, I'm good. Or like desperately try to stay out of the 9 and 10 seeds if you're a good team.
Right?
I
mean, I believe the Dallas Mavericks looked at the 9 and 10 seed and said, "No, we're good."
Yeah, they probably. Well, it's tough there with the Mavericks, though, right?
It would have been hard for them. Obviously.
Well, but
they needed some help.
Well, they needed help, but they also had a pick to keep, and I'm like organizationally, that's been a part of this that I don't think people have quite like taken into account as much as they should have. You can go through a lost season like this, and then you also lose your pick because you decided to win an extra game there. Like that didn't matter because OKC won. Like I really didn't understand the
Well, I
conversation.
mean, I have lots, as you know, I have lots of opinions on the reforming the lottery standings.
Yeah.
I think you could change the entire end of the regular season. My briefest elevator pitch is the lottery order should not be ordered by losses. It should be ordered by the most wins you have over teams that have a better record than you at the time of the matchup. So anytime you win, it's good. You're either keeping a worse team from you from improving their lottery standings, or if you beat a team better than you, you're improving your own lottery standings. You can keep the flattened odds. We still might have the situation where a team at the end of the year is like, would we rather be the 10 seed in the play-in, or would we rather enter the lottery? And so, like, again, there should be enough incentive of like that winning is the most important thing that I would wish teams would choose to make the playoffs no matter what. I mean, honestly, it should be owners should financially benefit. This is, again, if we want to borrow a model from other professional sports like the Premier League, it should matter to an owner whether they finished 22nd or 27th.
Yeah.
You know, like those 5 positions should be worth a lot of money for the owner's bottom line. I mean, maybe the player should have a financial stake too, where you get more, but like, I wish it was more like, we wouldn't make fun of Ted Leonosis, like about the Wizards always striving for 35 wins. It should be, it's way more valuable financially to win 35 games over 25 games because this is a sport.
Yeah,
Sports
I think
are supposed to win.
I think that's how you actually fix this, right? Yeah. You actually fix the tanking thing is a team that, is in the bottom 3, especially for a lengthened period of time. Yeah. You get none of the revenue sharing money.
You get less revenue sharing. Punish them.
You don't get any of the luxury tax stuff.
If you want to win, sign better players.
Yeah. I like that. I think we just fixed the league, Keith. So here you go.
I'm used to that.
All right. That is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Again, check out all of Keith's stuff on Fast Break Breakfast. It's a really fun, delightful conversation. I had a blast with you and John the other night. Yeah. And it is always fun to tune into that show. Also, if you want more in-depth analysis as we get ready for, there are still like 2 days before, 2.5 days before the Lakers and Grizzlies finally play. That's plenty of time to inform yourself on a team. And the best way to do it with this specific Memphis team is to check out Grits and Grinds. Thank you very much, Keith, for hopping on with me. And I'd say good luck, but I don't want to lie.
That's right. Thanks, Anthony. A lot of fun. I look forward to a very fun, exciting, competitive 5-game series.
Let's do winner gets drinks in Vegas when we see each other.
Yeah.
Done.
No.
All right.
Done.